You're listening to the Exhibitionist podcast, hosted by Nicola Reader and brought to you by inspiringexhibitors.com and Pro Extra, a wholly owned subsidiary of 12th Man Solutions Limited.
Hi there and welcome to episode 37 of the Exhibitionist podcast. I'm your host, Nicola Reader, and as always, thank you so much for joining us. I just want to say a special welcome to any of our listeners joining us from the Theatre Art Life website, where we've just been added as a podcast. It's a website that offers a huge amount of training and learning across the globe on a whole host of subjects. So thank you to Theatre Art Life for picking us up and adding us to your selection. So today, very shortly, we will be handing over to another returning guest in Adam Parry, who is the editor of Event Industry News, who's going to be talking to us about virtual events. So we'll hand over to that very shortly. But how are you doing, guys? Week 3 of lockdown, and how's it feeling for you? How are you getting on? Are you managing to do any work? Are the kids driving you crazy? Are you keeping well? Just wondering how everybody else is getting on out there. It is a really tough time, and there's so many people out there giving advice about what you should be doing to structure your day and how you should be spending your time to learn a new skill or do something amazing. But not every day works out like that. And I know certainly for us in our office, we sometimes have some days when we're super productive and get loads done. And we have days where it just kind of feels a little bit too much and we need to chill and just watch a movie. So I definitely don't want to be the person who says, this is how you should spend your time over the next few weeks, because I think the motto for me is spend your time however it feels best for you to spend it. But one of the things I have been doing that's really helped is reconnecting with another previous guest's work, and that's Daniel Priestley. For listeners of the show, you'll know that Daniel came on around about summertime last year. So check back on that episode if you want to hear what he had to say. But Daniel has written a number of books and is an entrepreneur. And he works around the theory of being the key person of influence in your industry. And his book is entitled that. He also has oversubscribed. And as we all start maybe to think about the reset and recovery phase, how we move out of lockdown, how we get businesses back going again, for me, I just thought, actually, there's something about being a key person of influence. And that's not somebody who everyone should listen to, but actually just someone who can help. And that's what we really want to do with our business, is try and help as many of you as we possibly can. And that's why we've increased the frequency of our podcast, because we're talking to guests who feel like they've got something to say that can help the events industry at the moment. So we're going to put podcasts out a little bit more frequently than usual to get you that advice as quickly as we can. But also in Daniel's work, there's some really great advice around just helping refine your pitch so that you're really clear about the value that you add, about what your proposition is, about just writing some features, some articles, some blog posts that might be useful as people start to think about emerging from lockdown and setting their businesses up again. And then partnerships that come your way from doing some of those things, from being seen as an influencer and somebody who adds value and helps in your industry. Those partnerships kind of happen, and that's certainly occurred for us since we worked with Daniel last year. So really easy to read books, really short and simple. I just thought it might be useful if you get a chance, have a look at some of Daniel's work, and there might be 2 or 3 things in there that will help you get ready for this reset and recovery phase that we're hearing we're going to go through. And of course, another brilliant book, if you did want something to pass your time during lockdown, is The Exhibitionist over on our website. If your event's been cancelled or postponed and you're thinking, how on earth now do I spend my time wisely? How can I plan better for when the event actually happens? Why not pick up a copy of the Exhibitionist book and the accompanying Project Manager Journal and work your way through that 10 minutes a day, going through the journal, doing the reflective questions, completing the exercises. And by the end of lockdown, you'll have the blueprint for your business, your specific circumstances of how to run a brilliant event. So shameless plug for the Exhibitionist there, but you can find all the details over on the website. So that's kind of it from me today, short and sweet. I'm going to hand it over to our conversation with Adam, who I have to say I started this conversation being slightly sceptical and also very unknowledgeable about what virtual events were, but felt so much more reassured at the end of it. So hope you enjoy listening to it as much as I enjoyed recording it. So on this week's edition of the Exhibitionist podcast, we are delighted to ask back another really popular guest from 2019, and that's Adam Parry, who is the editor of Event Industry News. So welcome, Adam.
Thank you for having me, Nicola.
Brilliant. And thank you for coming back. And we are going to get onto the topic of virtual events and what that means, what they are. It's something that I'm not that close to, so I'm really looking forward to this conversation. But just tell us how things are going for you at the moment, Adam, how it's feeling, what you're up to.
It's an interesting time at Event Industry News. Obviously, for the last couple of weeks, we've been very much covering how COVID is impacting our sector as a whole, engaging with organisers, suppliers, and in many cases, associations and the government as well. We were helping with a petition for the industry to get raised in the sector in Parliament, which needed drastic support. But you know what? The more we talk to organisers and suppliers, there's lots of positivity around the second half of the year and going into Q3 and Q4, with many organisers very positive that they'll be able to, bring back exhibitions, bring back events, bring back conferences. And in the meantime, figuring out how they can, support their customers and audience in the meantime. So, as long as everybody stays at home and social distances, I think, we're going to be in for a very, very busy second half of the year going into 2021, which will obviously help, people do more business across not just in the events industry, but obviously the events industry supports lots of other sectors in terms of business as well. So it's looking positive for the back end of the year, as long as, the government and ourselves and everybody can get a grip on what's happening at the moment and get it out of the way as soon as possible.
I think that's such an important point about that kind of positivity for the back end of the year. And, exhibitions are going to be a great platform really for people getting back together and actually seeing each other again when we've all been locked inside for however many months this is going to be. So equally looking forward and as positive as you for that to happen. But the one thing I'm hearing loads about at the moment is virtual. So let's go virtual with our event. Let's put it online. And to me, it just seems like a bit of a minefield. So I think you're the man to help me find my way through that minefield. So just let's start at the real basics. What are virtual events?
Well, it's interesting because what is an event, right? It could be anything from, I think legally it's like 4 people meeting up in a room is classed as an event. So virtual is similar to events in the term of it covers many different things. I think what many people think of as virtual events is a virtual event platform with content, speakers, other types of content going off, networking, etc. And that is true. But actually a virtual event can be as much as, just a group of people joining on a Zoom to discuss a particular topic. It could be a webinar. Arguably, a podcast like this, in essence, is a virtual event. It is 2 people talking about a particular subject matter, trying to engage an audience on that subject, and hopefully deliver some value, some thought leadership, etc. Exhibition-wise, obviously, there is very much a business element there. It's about doing business. It's about meeting your customers and prospects in a very short amount of time and doing condensing a lot of work into a very short period. But yeah, there's a virtual event could be literally, like I say, hanging out on Facebook as a group. What we've got to remember is that as consumers, I think the report last year by Hootsuite suggested that on average we as humans spend anywhere between 6 to 8 hours online in various forms. A lot of that is on social media. Social media is essentially an ongoing continuous event. It's an opportunity for you to speak to your audience and your network, again, about subject matter and deliver media, whether that be video, audio, images, etc. So, the term virtual event is probably very overarching and very wide. What it will mean for attendees is probably different to what it will mean to exhibitors and organisers. So it really depends on what angle you're coming from.
Brilliant. And I think that kind of clarifies for me, it's that same as a face-to-face event where a group of people with some sort of common interest, whatever that might be, just gets together to talk about that, to troubleshoot, to problem solve, to share their experiences and help each other. So that kind of makes a bit more sense in my head. So thinking about virtual exhibitions and online exhibitions, they haven't just happened because of COVID-19. I guess they're already happening. So what's your experience of virtual exhibitions? What do you know about them? Have you been to any good ones?
Yeah, so been to a few bad ones, I must admit. Virtual exhibitions are probably not necessarily anything really new. well, at least not for the last decade, at least. I can remember 10, 12 years ago, really experiencing one of the very, very first virtual exhibitions in its infancy. And, the technology then did its best, and it's actually caught up a little bit. But a virtual exhibition, well, what's an exhibition? It's the engagement of two people or two businesses, talking about what they can do for each other, right? So now we see virtual exhibitions in a number of different forms. There is what I would class as the experience, the kind of the computer game style, walking around a 3D model, whether that be on your laptop or your phone, or God forbid a VR headset. Not that I'd want to personally do that. And it's a way for an attendee to try and experience what a face-to-face event is as live as possible. But going on from that, there are a number of platforms out there that are actually focusing more on the real value of exhibitions. So Hopin are doing a great example of that with their platform, where the predominantly of the driver of the audience is the content, but then exhibitors have a really sophisticated exhibitor profile, with the ability for those visitors to arrange meetings and connect to them like we are now, Nicola, with a video call. Grip Umbrella are two other platforms that are doing very much the same. They're not focusing on the content, although you can watch the content in their systems. They are focusing on connecting people up who have a interest together, whether that be I need your product, I need your service, or I can supply you, and facilitating the meeting side of things. And again, that's nothing new really, is it? We've connected through virtual platforms like Zoom or Hangouts or Skype for over a decade now to do business internationally, where travel, etc., just doesn't make sense. So what those existing platforms that facilitated the existing exhibition market have kind of hybridized themselves to now facilitate the important part of the exhibition, which is the meeting of the minds and the business relationships.
And in the current challenges that we're facing, have you seen any events that would have been face-to-face that have actually taken the decision to move online? Is that happening yet?
It is actually happening. We just published a case study yesterday with ITB in Berlin. They were one of the first to be affected by the suppression of events going ahead, so no events over 100 people. And they've really successfully still leveraged their speakers, the content, the audience that they have built up over, I don't know how long that event's been going, over 15 years, I think it is. And what they've done is, rather than miss the opportunity of those people not to do business or not to connect up and speak till 2021, if we can come back as that soon, they've used technology and exhibition technology and matchmaking technology to still make that happen. So if anybody's listening to this and wants to find that information on it, is available on Event Industry News how they did that, and the results of that. And the results are really positive. So, when we look at the economic impact of exhibitions, exhibitions provide so much business value, both to local areas, but also to the whole string of business within that sector, that a year missed of some of these large major events or even smaller scale events can mean huge losses for businesses or gaps in the market. So it's good to see organisers are adapting and leveraging that technology, and at least providing some way of those people still connecting around the event and around that theme of content and speakers and exhibitors.
And it's interesting to hear you talk about the kind of value that the organisers can bring, because there's almost a temptation that if you're an organiser of a show and your show's being postponed and you want to keep in touch with exhibitors, all of your content with them over the next 3-6 months is going to be geared around getting ready for the show and, just pushing your show, and that's what's going to be important to you. But actually, there's some quite smart organisers out there who are saying, well, how do we build the community? How do we put them in touch with each other? How do we create some value and add some, masterclasses around government funding and how you keep going? So is there a slightly different agenda for the content you'd maybe share as an organiser virtually over the next few months than you would do if it was just a normal advertising or marketing campaign headed into a show?
Yeah, I suppose. So if we look at how traditional exhibitions are organised, they're organised to do lots in a very short period of time, right? 2-3 days if you're lucky for some of the big stuff. What the technology is actually opening up the ability to do is not only spread that content over a longer period, but open up the opportunities for those people to connect and meet and do networking over a longer period. I don't think it'll be uncommon for us to see, coming out of COVID, a hybridized solution where, as an exhibitor with that audience, you can start connecting up and doing meetings with those participants, maybe even as much as a week out and possibly a week after the face-to-face event. I don't think they're going to replace those face-to-face events. And in the interim, trying to capture somebody's attention for 2 days virtually and have them sat there in front of the laptop for 8 hours a day, it's unrealistic. Where we've got our normal day-to-day business to do, we aren't in an environment which means our attention is focused because we're there in person. And we also have social media and phone and other people, just general stuff going off. And especially when we're working from home now, I've got a little one in the background who just might need my attention. So I'm not going to ignore him, no matter how great the keynote is or meeting is. So, I think even in the short term, we'll see organisers go, okay, so this is our event over 2 days. How do we spread that out ever so slightly to give people more opportunity to engage? Can we turn a 2-day exhibition and an event as a face-to-face into a week-long's worth of activity, and maybe have the keynote on a Monday evening to kick things off with a bit of network, and then Tuesday we do some business stuff. Wednesday, maybe that's the exhibition side of things. Connect up with your exhibitors, do your meetings, your matchmaking. Thursday could be follow-up. Friday, let's do something fun. I think that's one of the main areas that organisers are trying to wrap their head around now. It's not so much the technology. The technology is there. The technology, like Zoom that we're using now, is solid. It just takes a little bit of kind of getting used to and how you deliver content through that, especially from the speaker side of things. But there's teams and people and professionals in place that can take care of that. When it comes to the matchmaking, the exhibitor face-to-face side, there's technology that can take care of that. I think what we need to do as organisers and as exhibitors is just wrap our head around a slightly changing format, and that will become more apparent as people get more used to doing it. It's like when there's a new social media app, right? It's like TikTok. TikTok is the big thing with the youngsters. I'm just trying to grab my head around it just so I understand it. And it takes you a week to kind of get used to how things work. And I think that's what we're seeing from this side of things. I think we're seeing an adaptation in how we think about an event and an exhibition, both from how long it is, content, and how we engage with it as exhibitors, attendees, and how we program it as organisers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I know you'll want to be totally impartial as an editor, so I'm not asking you to choose one above the other, but just throw out a couple of names of platforms if organisers thinking, I want to do something, but maybe don't even know where to start looking. Where can they go to find some of those platforms? Okay,
so there is a list on my LinkedIn profile. It's a pinned article on my profile, which anybody can access, and there's a list there of companies to research. And I'll be honest with you, it's growing every single day, because technology providers within the events industry, it's not taking them much of a leap to transfer over to offering a virtual solution, especially when they've got websites and registration and all that kind of stuff that organisers need to make an event happen, to offer this bit, the virtualization of content and matchmaking. It's not a great leap. So there's more coming out every day. I would really look at what type of organizer you are and what type of event you want to deliver, and choose the solution that works best for that. I'll be honest with you, Zoom for delivering content is fantastic. It's really cost effective. It doesn't take too much to set up. It's extremely stable. And they've got huge support and infrastructure in place. So for not a lot of money as an organizer, or even as an exhibitor, if you want to use it to do meetings, it's a great platform. If you want something more sophisticated on the content side, then Hopin, Glitter Live, Hey Summit, Workcast, iVent, which is a warts and all solution. It's like literally got everything that you could ever imagine that you would ever want. They're all great solutions. If you want something that's focused on doing business, then Grip, Umbrella, Fanamina, network tables, they're all great solutions out there. The list is huge, to be honest with you. It's kind of like social media platforms. We think of like 4 core ones, don't we? But there's actually like 300 or something. It really depends on what you're trying to do. So if I was trying to give advice to people listening to this that are thinking, can I do this myself? Can I use technology to leverage my own and deliver my own event? I would list down what you are trying to achieve and find functionality that matches all of that, and then double checking on support, because support's one of those things that lots of people need, especially when it's something new. Test the support, test how quick they are to respond. What can they offer you? Can you buy into that support? Because that's one thing that these companies can't necessarily provide for free, is somebody at the other end of the phone just to respond. They're not Amazon. Yeah. So it really boils down to what you're trying to achieve. Find the technology that matches your objectives, and also just check in that there is a company that can support you if you need to, and if you can buy into that, because there's nothing worse than doing something new and not feeling like there's somebody that you can ring, or he's just there to switch it off and switch it back on again if the mic doesn't work, kind of scenario. So that's test that. These guys are all happy to do demos for nothing. From the exhibitor side, I would say this, right? There's lots of pessimism around engaging with people in this way, and can I actually do business in this way? And to me, it's a little bit ludicrous, because the opportunities for a virtual event are much. The organizer setting that up for you, right? And as all these companies they'll have sales team and marketing teams, and it's not much different to doing a virtual Zoom call or a virtual meeting, or even picking up the phone, really, apart from the fact that you can see that other person. So if you're a company thinking, this is just not going to provide me the same value, it's actually a more cost-effective way to participate in an event than actually sometimes exhibiting. Don't get me wrong, the overriding value of being there as an exhibitor and having your products on show and having that face-to-face opportunity, the value on that is massive. But just because it's virtual doesn't mean that all of a sudden the value is not there. Yeah. The technology can take care of that, and the opportunities are there to still connect up with those key prospects and customers and do business.
And so we're certainly not short of providers in any way from what you're saying there, which is brilliant. There's loads of people out there to help. And the one thing I kind of picked up from there is just make sure if you need the support, you pick a provider that's got plenty of support to offer you. But you did talk, you just mentioned about having, making sure your mic works and that kind of stuff. So if an exhibitor's sitting there and thinking, I want to do something virtually, but I've got like a really old laptop, I've no kit, where do I start? What kit do you need to do something like, I don't know, a webinar or a Zoom video conference? Do you need really technical stuff?
Not really at all. My advice is, and this goes for exhibitors as well, even they're not the one that's going to be speaking or casting or anything like that. Audio is probably more important than video for a start. There's nothing worse than listening to a crackly radio, right? It's like it gets on your wick. But people can deal with a bit of a grainy image, because most of the time they're not focused on the actual, literally looking at the person anyway. But audio is one of those things. It's like when you've got a bad line connection on the phone, you kind of hang up, don't you, and try again and keep trying until you get that clear line. So my advice would be to invest in audio first. Ditch the AirPods, ditch the plug-in headphones. They're crap. Pick up a mic from a USB mic or a USB-C mic from Amazon for 50 quid. And honestly, that £50 investment, if you're a speaker, not only will elevate your session massively, but even as that person that's engaging with your potential prospects and customers, it's absolutely a worthwhile investment. And most people wouldn't even think twice about spending 50 quid on some lunch and beers for a prospect, right?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
In camera-wise, Logitech do a really good series that are not very cheap, not very expensive. And that's, again, an external mic that you can plug in to whatever device you're using. So it doesn't even necessarily need to work on a laptop. You could use an iPad or and even an iPhone to connect up and do the actual meeting. And what that camera does, it streams in 720 or 1080p, so the image is much clearer, the lighting's a lot better, and you can also position it wherever you want. So that gives you a lot more flexibility about how you stood, sit, standing. One of my real bugbears is people who do meetings on laptops and the camera's pointed at the chin. It's just like, I don't want to see your chin. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing great about your chin. So even if you got to use a laptop and you're just using your mic and you just want to use your laptop webcam, lift your bloody laptop up so it's head high and it's actually pointing at your face, kind of scenario. So yeah, I think, anywhere from 50 quid just for the mic up to maybe 100, 150 quid for a mic and a camera, and you're pretty much there. Other than a good internet connection, which is obviously based on what you can get in your area and at home and all that kind of stuff, then for not much money, you can really increase the production value and the quality of what that other person at the other end is going to hear and see. So it's not very expensive at all.
It's such great advice, and I was chuckling during Adam speaking there as I was desperately looking at my screen thinking, is all he can see is my chin, I'm going to get into so much trouble. But actually, he has got the full-on face this morning, so apologies for that. I'm sure it's not what you want to be looking at o'clock in the morning, but you at least didn't just get my chin. So you mentioned right at the start of the conversation about you'd been to some bad exhibitions online or bad virtual events, and without naming and shaming, I'm not asking for the names of those, but what was it that made them not a great experience for you? What are the sorts of things that people might want to avoid?
Yeah, so probably a couple of things. Preparedness from the organizer. There is nothing worse than waiting, staring at a screen with nothing happening. So, and I've seen it before where I've been in a room ready, waiting to go, and in less than 10 minutes, people are kicking off. Wasting 10 minutes, dropping out, you're losing audience, you're losing engagement. So one of my top tips there, if you are an organizer and you're looking at doing any of this, bring your networking before the session, because there's always people that turn up early. There's always the eager Annie. I'm one of those people that's ready and raring to go 15 minutes before the actual thing's starting, right? So bring the networking forward, and then whoever just keeps dropping in can kind of speak and chat and all that kind of stuff. And Zoom can do that. That's not a problem. So that's one thing. Audio and video quality is another. Again, if you're an organizer and you're delivering content and you're delivering that content, again, it doesn't take much to make an interesting background with a bit of print or just, positioning some flowers and a picture and all that kind of stuff. Make sure your lighting's okay. Lighting up of the speaker doesn't cost a lot. I would always suggest, if you are delivering content as an organizer, everybody stands up, nobody sat down, because that, opens up the chest, puts the shoulders back, people speak more confidently, they feel more comfortable than being sat down and kind of twiddling in the chair and all that kind of stuff. And invest in microphones and videos and make sure that's good. And have that backup, do all the tests and all that kind of stuff that makes you really confident that when you do go live, also just invest in the communication with your audience about how they join and how they get on to those sessions and that exhibitor experience. The likelihood is for 90% of those people coming on, it's going to be a brand new experience to them. They're not going to use the platform before. They're not necessarily going to be, they don't know what to expect. So spend the time, even do short videos or something like that, explaining how they get on, what they can expect, the format, keeping regular contact with them. So that's the kind of stuff that I've seen in the past is just thinking, we can just throw this together and it's online, so people expect it to be a bit rough around the edges. That to me is mental. Why would you do that when you would never expect the live face-to-face experience to be that way? So I just think about even fun things to keep people engaged. People need toilet breaks and coffee breaks and do things in between. So those people that are still engaged do like a magic trick or card tricks or that kind of stuff. One nice thing I think organisers can do is think about the fact that when their audience is remote, especially around conferences and B2B conferences, one of the things that somebody would generally do is sponsor things like beers, networking drinks, or the lunch and things like that, right? Opportunity for that sponsor to get some brand recognition and some engagement, and who's not going to want a free lunch? that stuff can still be done virtually. You know, I could buy you, Nicola, now a Deliveroo or Uber Eats code if you can get it in your area. I could send that in a nice, sponsored, personalised email saying, Nicola, great to see you at VR Live. Here's lunch on me, order whatever you want. Do us a tweet of your photo of what we got you. Super engagement, right? Yeah. And the same with beers. You know, everybody loves the end of the exhibition day beers, especially the exhibitor drinks, right? Great networking opportunity. Somebody could sponsor the beers and have a little pack of beers, or again, something sent to that person's house and home. So when that networking hour happens, they've got the beer there. It's not something that they've got to go on and find and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So there's lots of things that can make an online event engaging and still feel like they're part of it, and a bit more than just dialing in.
I love that advice. I think it's absolutely brilliant because we work with exhibitors all the time, and quite often we talk about those hard sell hanks and exhibitors just being so enthusiastic when they're at a show that they just talk about their proposition. They just talk about what they've got to sell and don't really get to know who the visitor is, and it's all very one way. And I think the temptation for some exhibitors might be rubbing their hands thinking, yeah, I've got an hour to just talk about us virtually. Yeah. You know, nobody can interrupt me, nobody can stop me. I can just talk about how amazing we are. And actually, it's like, no, you've got to think about how you take that engagement from the show floor to a virtual world. You can't just push and talk at people for an hour, because that's not what they're there for.
Yeah, and here's another piece of advice, another great way for any company out there that ever does swag on their stands, right? Do they do the t-shirts, the sunglasses, the mugs, all that kind of great stuff that, you know, people love. I've got, the wife hates it, but I've got loads of mugs and stuff that I brought back from exhibitions. There is an actual company that I will mention that's just launched something called We&rsquo. And We&rsquo are a brand merchandise specialist, a live engagement specialist for companies like Google with their Android at Mobile World Congress, lots of other brands that we all love and know. And what they have done is they've hybridized and virtualized their personalized swag offering. So a company that would usually do something at exhibition can actually have this as part of a virtual event, and their customers, prospects, or the people that are engaging with their content can actually go on and personalize their own t-shirt, so it's unique to them, only available as that part of that event. The sponsor or the company can actually upload assets that represents their company or their brand ethos and all that kind of stuff, so it's relevant to it. And then what that company will do is, once that audience has decided what they have in their basket, they will actually print it and ship it anywhere in the world to that customer. So, you know, I'm not saying that's going to be cheap. I actually don't know the pricing of it. I think it's probably very in line with what you would pay for a physical event, apart from obviously the added shipping costs. But if you're a customer who does that already at a face-to-face event, there's absolutely technology to wrap around as part of a virtual event to still get an engagement and to still have that nice little touch, and for that audience member or that attendee, prospect, etc., to still get something very personal to them as part of that experience that they can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, and it is exactly that word, experience. It's how do you move the experience online, not just the presentation of this is what we do. It's about that engagement and those touch points. And one thing I just wanted to pick up on, and I will let you go, so I could sit and talk about this all day. I'm so sorry, I'm conscious you are so busy. Just from an exhibitor perspective, I think exhibitors in general might be less familiar with some of the platforms out there and how to kind of start digitally engaging. And the obvious default is we'll just do a Zoom webinar presentation, that kind of thing. But just getting creative. What if an exhibitor was planning on launching a new product at a show that was going to be over the spring, summer season and now can't do that? What are some ways they could do that creatively online now? What have you seen anything that's caught your eye, or what the formats are out there for them to use?
Yeah, I think the way that my advice would be to do and break it down, break that launch down as part of a longer campaign. So I'm always a big fan of things being teased, right? So the information is just not there, and it's there for me to kind of digest, and I get all that information in like 5 minutes and I'm done. All right, okay. I like things being kind of like just drip fed out. So I'll give an example of something we've done recently with an awards that we've done. We we set up social accounts for that for specific launch. We had graphics and things designed, and then we started to post and drip feed things out up to the launch of it. We also tactically kind of engaged with, prospects and things like that, where we would follow them and tweet at them and do bits and bobs just to kind of get their attention and go, okay, what's this thing? Because there's not much information about it. So what other option have you got than to follow it to figure it out, right? And that just led up to a launch which involved a video recording from me personally to my audience about what we were launching and why. And I think that's a great way, because not only does it gain people's interest everybody's inquisitive, right? Curiosity killed the cat. So there's already lots of free tools and social media tools and all that kind of stuff that you can set up. You could even a domain name just for that particular product launch and stick a website up through Wix or something like that. It doesn't cost a lot of money. You can then, retarget those customers using PPC and all that kind of stuff to make it, really engaging for them, or target them after the launch to buy or inquire about the product. And I think that's a great way. And then the video side of things, that personal touch from somebody within the company just gives you that face-to-face point of it, which then I would lead on to, we're going to do a 15-minute overview and answer any questions about this product kind of scenario. Yeah. And I think that's the other thing as well, when it comes to doing product launches or, this bit, the face-to-face bit through a Zoom, don't speak for an hour. You don't have an hour with people generally at an exhibition trade show. You're lucky if you have 5 minutes. But what you spend a lot of time doing is you spend a lot of time answering questions, right? So I would think about the content in a way that you do a very short, sharp overview of your launch, what it is, why you're doing it, how it fits in with the rest of the business, what benefits it offers the people that you're talking to, and then open up this to Q&A. Maybe even start taking questions before you do this. I do that a lot with my face-to-face events. I use tools and surveys from the people that are registering for it to say, listen, we want to answer your question. So if you've got a really cool question, submit it. And then you've got a bank of questions ready to go, rather than that kind of awkward, like, has anybody got any questions? And I would do that. Focus on, short presentation, focused on more on the questions and answers for your prospects, and all the objection handling will take care of itself. And you'll probably sell a load out of the back end of it quite quickly.
Absolutely. And I think there's a point there just as well about the kind of sensitivity of the time we're in, and really think about your audience. So, for example, some of the convenience and retail trade shows at the moment, where some of the food brands might have had a really big launch and wanted to talk to retailers about that launch. Well, right now, retailers are just trying to get stuff on shelves. They're trying to keep their customers safe. They're trying to keep their staff safe. So you kind of falling in there with here's this great new product we've got coming out ready for Christmas, is probably not what they want to hear. But a 30-second video they can watch on their phone from their MD or UK manager just saying, you guys are doing a great job, thanks ever so much for everything, we're trying to keep you stocked as much as we can, will mean far more. So I think at the moment as well, it's that kind of sensitivity around where is your audience likely to be in their kind of COVID challenge, and is it appropriate for you to be? Because I think everybody suddenly wants to jump on the virtual bandwagon and go, yeah, we're going to do something. And it's like, actually, is it appropriate right now? Are your audience going to be interested in? Is it relevant for where they are with their business at the time?
Yeah, one of the other great things to probably drive engagement around that online event is provide them with access to information before everybody else. So maybe even give them a slight competitive advantage over their competitors with your product by saying, listen, we are going to give you a report, stats, information. We're going to give you the brochure. As part of this event, you have to sign up to it to access it, and it'll be, solely for those participants for the next 14 days. And that is probably enough to drive people, well, if I can only get this way, I'm going to sign up. Yeah. And then you've got the opportunity to remind them to attend or send them the recording and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So just think about how you would, drip feed and lead cap those people in a face-to-face or in a normal digital marketing way, and just apply those same rules to virtual events.
so much in the last sort of half hour, however long we've been chatting. It might have been 3 hours for all I know. It seems to have flown by in 5 minutes. But there's so much advice and information in there, which I think will really, really help people. And I think it might be something we come back to in a couple of months and kind of see how people have, what the response has been, what's been good, what we've learned from it. So thank you so much for your time. I'm conscious how busy you are, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. So thank you. But one question we're asking all podcast guests at the moment, so this might be putting you on the spot a little bit. What's keeping you occupied during lockdown? What are you reading? What are you watching? What are you listening to? What should our listeners also be doing?
Oh, I'm gonna sound really boring. My little boy, he really is. You know, I'm lucky that I work from home, so I get to spend a lot of time with him anyway. But I'm just using this extra bit of time while things are quiet and I've not got friends and family vying for my attention and things like that as well. I'm just spending a bit more time with him. He's only young; he's 8 months now, so you know he's not going to stay that small forever. And that's what I'm doing. It's just, you know, we very rarely get, you know, family time, do we? You know, it's the kind of always the last people that get our attention. So I think while people are a little bit quiet, is just find ways to spend more time with your family, even if they're not around. Just, you know, Zoom them, do a house party, do like virtual beers with them, whatever it is. That for me is making the lockdown bearable, because my attention's kind of there and I feel like it's a fruitful exercise rather than just watching 3 seasons of something on Netflix.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love hearing that. It's that kind of, you know, we've been talking for however long about engagement, and it's about that engagement and really being able to be there with your family. So
yeah, although I must admit I have just ordered a 4,000 piece jigsaw, so that might keep my attention for a bit.
Have you got a table big enough to do that on?
I actually don't know. I don't know.
That's going to be one.
I'll have to put it on the floor.
Yeah, I hope you've got a big room. So we need photographs of that on social media when you've done it. So
will do.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time, Adam. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, they can find you at Event Industry News or on LinkedIn, I'm guessing.
That's right. Adam Parry on LinkedIn, eventindustrynews.com, or on Twitter, I am at Punchtown Parry.
Punchtown Parry. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, and good luck with everything over the coming weeks, and no doubt we'll speak to you again soon.
No, thanks for having me.
Thank you. So massive thanks there to Adam for coming back and chatting to us about virtual events. Since that conversation, I've been in and picked up and had a look at a couple of the platforms and the providers that Adam was suggesting, and there is some fantastic programs out there and suppliers that are doing some brilliant stuff that isn't just another webinar. So we'd really encourage you guys, if you're thinking about wanting to do something different over the coming months with your content and do something a little bit edgy, then get in touch with those guys or get in touch with us, and we'll definitely help you, because we're keen to get some case studies together of where you guys have been using this and how it's worked out for you. So do let us know any of your success stories. As usual, you can get in touch with us in the normal ways through the website. We'll still be posting blogs, and we are doing some blogs and content on behalf of the Department for International Trade over the coming weeks. So just check out your local regional websites to see what we're doing for them. That should help you with some information and advice over the coming weeks. You can subscribe to the newsletter there as well, where we will also keep you up to date on everything that we're doing. As I mentioned, the Exhibitionist book and journal is available via the website, and don't forget we donate to the National Literacy Trust for every copy that we sell via the website. So moving on to the next edition of the Exhibitionist podcast, that will be coming out to you hopefully next Tuesday, and we're going to be speaking to Laura Capalabra, who is the founder of Stress Matters. And as I mentioned in last week's podcast, Stress Matters have set up an events dedicated helpline for mental health first aid. So if you're in the events industry and feeling like you're struggling and feeling that you're having some of those symptoms of anxiety and stress, then Laura's going to be talking about what Stress Matters are doing to help with that, but also what you can do to help yourself and help each other. On which point, coffee and a chat really, really helps at the moment. So anybody who's struggling, please don't be alone. Please just give us a ring. We will talk to anybody in the industry. If you just fancy a Zoom and a coffee or a Zoom and a beer, let's talk. Let's try and help reassure each other that we can get through this. They are difficult and challenging times, but we're absolutely all in it together. If we can do anything to help, please give us a shout. Please keep safe. Please stay home over the next few weeks, wherever you are in the world. And we look forward to speaking to you again soon. Happy exhibitioning.
Hop over now to inspiringexhibitors.com to subscribe to our newsletters, blogs and future podcasts. keeping you up to date with industry insight. While there, you can also find out more about The Exhibitionist, inspiring trade show excellence. Once again, thank you for listening.